Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Erin, and today we're having a little bit of a crafting corner type project, but I am here with Little Bit. She has been the newest addition to our family, and all of our dogs have stockings for Christmas, and right now it is the Friday before Christmas, so I am just getting started on her stocking. So hopefully we can get this done tonight and hung up so that she can get her presents from Santa before Christmas time. This little girl came into our lives about a year and a half ago, and last Christmas we weren't sure if we were going to keep her or if we were just fostering her and going to try to find her another home, but we have decided to keep her. She is microchipped to us. She is ours 100%. She'll be with us until she goes over the Rainbow Bridge one day. But that means since she is an official member of the family that she gets a stocking. So I'm gonna put her down and let her go eat her dinner, and I'll show you guys one of the other dog stockings, and then I'll pan the camera down and we'll get this going. So this is the stocking for our youngest dog, Simon. His is Star Wars themed. My husband's is Batman themed. The Malcolm's is Avengers themed. Mine is like pink and green and cutesy. Zoe's is like red, white, and green, like doggy Christmas themed. Is that all the dogs? Zoe, Simon, Malcolm, me, and Mark. Yeah, so this is kind of like what I end up doing with quilting a stocking for them. Now I don't have a tag for a little bit. I'll have to get that made after the holidays, so that'll be on there next year. The fabric that I'm going to be using for Little Bit stocking is actually left over from a baby quilt that I made for one of my friends, and it was Princess Jasmine themed. So we have a lot of like blues and purples and golds, and so all these little squares that I have left over from making that quilt. I'm going to go ahead and start piecing these together and lay out our stocking. Alright, I got you guys panned down to our craft table so we can figure out what we're going to do. So we have all of our squares cut, and one of the most important parts of piecing together a quilt properly is having good squares. So I just used my rotary cutting wheel and my rulers to make sure that these are cut straight. These are 3x3s. So once we account for our 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side, they're going to end up being 2.5 by 2.5 inch squares. But we'll go ahead and we'll start piecing some of these together. So when piecing together your blocks, you want to make sure that the two front sides of your fabric are facing each other, and you line up your seams. And I'm not worried about my thread colors because all of that's going to be on the underside of the quilt, but we're just going to go ahead and line this up. The edge of my foot here is your 1/4 inch seam allowance, so we'll go ahead and piece these two together. So something really neat that I learned was that instead of cutting your thread every single time you guys do two pieces together, you just take the next two in your set and you can stitch those as well. That way you're not cutting your thread, you just keep on going. That will really cut down on the amount of thread that you end up using. So here you can see I have these two stitched together and these two stitched together, and it's just that 1/4 inch seam in the back. And so I want it to go purple, green, like that. So to combine these two blocks, we'll go ahead and line up those edges and stitch those. On the very top rows of the stocking, I only need 4 blocks across, so I'm going to go ahead and make a couple more of these so that we can end up ironing our seams and then joining our strips together. guys, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows of squares, and this is kind of my template. This is just a regular like dollar store stocking, and so I still need to sew all of my rows together, but I just kind of want to fit this. This might be okay. I might end up needing one more block, but we'll go ahead and iron these down and see if these will work. My iron is heating up, and I just have this tabletop ironing board, but I'll go ahead and show you guys the back. So we have our seams here, and the whole theory behind ironing down your seams is, number one, to make your project flatter and look better, but also when you iron your seams down in opposite directions, you actually create almost a hooking type of situation with the rows, so they hook into each other, and then you get your straighter lines in your quilting. But we'll see. This is getting nice and heated up. I like to have a little spray bottle of water, kind of just spray everything down. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch my fabric a little bit and iron down those seams in one direction. So that's row number 1. And as I go, I'm going to make sure that my pattern stays the way I want it to, because I have the diagonal on these. So with this one, since I ironed the seams down this way, this one I'm going to iron the seams down this way. So by doing this, the lip of my seam is on this side on this one, and the lip of my seam is on this side on this one. So when you put these two face down together, and I'll try to zoom in enough to where you guys can see it, but these two seams here, they interlock with each other, and then the seams lay flat. So, and it goes like that all the way down your block, so you end up getting a nice seam. So I'll go ahead and stitch these two rows together so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So I have these two rows sewed together, and some of my blocks were a little bit off, and I'm working on a very cheap machine, but if you ignore down here, which some of that's going to be cut off anyway, you can see that I have really nice corners on a lot of these seams. On the back with your big seam, again, you want to just go ahead and lay that down. Looks like most of it wants to go in that direction, so we'll lay it down in that direction there. So that there is 2 of our rows, and we'll just keep on doing that, interlocking the rows as we go down. So this is our blocks that we have so far. Again, I'm using a cheaper sewing machine, and I am not being very patient today, so my corners are matching up all right, but they're not perfect. But again, this is a stocking for my little puppy dog. Now what I'm getting worried about is having enough blocks to do what I need to do as far as making another back panel. I might end up just doing the back panel as solid color and not really worrying about having the back panel quilted as well, just because I am probably going to run out of fabric, but we'll cross that bridge whenever we get there. So taking my template of my stocking, I do need to go ahead and quilt one more row for the bottom here. So this is our final front panel, and I had 28 squares for this. I have 27 squares already cut, but I do have more of this fabric. I just saw it up in my pile. So I'll go ahead and cut one more square, and then we'll go ahead and do a back as well. Alright guys, so we have our 2 quilted pieces. I have the extra jasmine fabric, which is going to be the inside of the stocking, and then I have my batting, and then this fabric here I'm going to end up cutting into strips to do the binding along the top of the stocking. But right now I need to layer my top quilted part, my batting, and my backing and kind of get those cut, and then I'll go ahead and trace and cut out my stocking pattern as well. One mistake that I made a couple years ago is I ended up cutting each stocking on top of each other like this, and I ended up with 2 of the same sides of the stocking. So what's important to note in this is that the 2 quilted sides need to be put together like that. And so that will ensure that you get 2 correct sides of your stocking. So we have our 2 halves of our stocking. I want to go ahead and do the binding up top before I put the 2 sides together. I'm back over here with my ironing board, and I just cut a 4-inch strip of this fabric, which is going to be my binding, because you're going to want to iron it in half, and then we'll do the rest of the binding from there. I also want to use some of this binding to make the loop that holds the stocking on the hooks as well, but let's go see if this fits. So with binding, you want to take the raw edge of your fabric that's folded in half and put it at the top of your stocking like that. Let me give myself a little bit of overhang. And pin it. Then we take that over to our sewing machine, and again we give ourselves a 1/4 inch seam on that. So the way that works for our binding is that when you flip your edge back over here, and again press, and then again flip it over your raw edge here in the back, you end up with a really nice binding up top. Now I folded that binding over and pinned it along the back. If I had more time, I would hand stitch this so that you wouldn't see the seam from the front. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch, it's called stitch the ditch. I'm going to stitch the ditch along this front seam here and go ahead and finish this binding. So for our hanging tab, I had that same piece of 4-inch fabric that I ironed down the middle, and I just folded these 2 flaps and ironed those down. And so when you fold it again, I can just run that through the machine and then you have a nice little strap. All right, so now it's time to assemble our stocking. So you want the quilted edges to be facing each other. So we've pinned our two sides together and we're gonna run a stitch along this, and then when we turn the stocking inside out, it should be done. We'll go ahead and unpin this and see what it looks like. Do some trimming and then add our loop. I'm going to check for anywhere where it wasn't stitched properly. Looks like we're good. Alright guys, I turned it right side out. And that is what our stocking is looking like right now. I do need to go ahead and trim our binding edges right here and then add our loop and we should be done. All right guys, so there we have it. Little Bit officially has a stocking to be hung for Christmas. Now I absolutely don't claim to be a master quilter, but I do think it's a lot of fun to kind of put together these little projects on my cheap little sewing machine. I'd love to get a better one day, but it just hasn't been in our budget to be able to do that. Thank you for hanging out in the crafting corner tonight. If you found this video helpful, or if you like this type of video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up or a paws up, as Little Bit would say. Leave me a comment down below of some of the Christmas projects that you have been working on, or if you guys have stockings for your dogs, let me know if you guys have that tradition in your home. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave, and you guys have a Merry Christmas. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!